to Deep Sleep Stories. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep, a short review, comment, or sharing the podcast with someone who might benefit is a simple and meaningful way to support the show so that we may continue to offer it for free. Now, take a slow, gentle breath and let's begin tonight's story.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where the night is gentle and the world slows down just for you. Tonight, you are going to wander into a hidden valley of warm, shimmering hot springs beneath a sky full of stars. For now, there is nothing you have to do and nowhere else you need to be. Let your body find a comfortable position, easing into the surface that supports you. Let your hands rest where they fall, soft and loose. If it feels good, you might let your eyes drift closed, or simply grow heavy and relaxed. Take a long, slow breath in, as if you could breathe in the quiet of the night itself. Notice the coolness of the air at the tip of your nose, the gentle expansion of your chest. And then exhale just as slowly, letting your shoulders soften and your jaw unclench. There is nothing to hold on to. With every breath out, you can let go a little more. Begin to imagine a path unfolding beneath your feet, a soft trail leading away from the noise of the day and into a landscape of peace. As you breathe in, the path becomes clearer. As you breathe out, the thoughts of the day fall behind you like dry leaves in the wind. Another slow breath in, and you sense the promise of warm water, of starlight mirrored on a still surface, of steam rising like silver mist in the darkness. A slow breath out, and your body grows heavier, and your mind grows quieter, ready to drift into the story. Far away from cities and clocks and bright, restless lights, there was a valley that only revealed itself to those who were ready to rest. The mountains that held it were soft in shape and worn by time, covered in dark pines that sighed quietly in the wind. At the center of this valley lay a circle of hot springs, pools of clear, shimmering water that glowed faintly even in the deepest of nights, as if they remembered the sun. On this night, a traveler was making their way along a narrow forest path toward the valley. The traveler had walked through many busy days and many crowded places, and now their footsteps were slow and easy. The moon, almost full, floated just above the trees, and its pale light spilled across the path in broken patches, like scattered pieces of silver cloth. The air around the traveler was cool and crisp, wrapped in the gentle scent of pine needles and damp earth. Small sounds whispered close by, the soft hush of needles underfoot, the distant murmur of a creek, the single clear note of a night bird calling from somewhere high in the branches. With each step, the world they had left behind grew fainter and farther away, like a conversation heard from another room. They carried no hurry with them, only a quiet curiosity and a deep, growing calm. Their shoulders, once tight with the weight of the day, had begun to ease. Their hands were no longer clenched. The night accepted them without question, as if it had been waiting. As the traveler rounded a slow, gentle curve in the path, the trees opened and the sky appeared in earnest. Above the valley, the stars were spread in soft, enormous clusters, more numerous than the traveler had seen in a very long time. They hung low and kind in the dark, not sharp or glaring, but velvety and deep, as though someone had dusted the sky with luminous powder. For a moment, the traveler simply stood and breathed. The path beneath their feet felt steady and sure. A faint warmth brushed against their skin, carried on the breeze from somewhere ahead. It was the first hint of the hot springs, a gentle promise of comfort waiting in the hollow of the valley. They followed the breath of warmth down a slope where the soil grew soft and the shadows thickened. Lanterns began to appear alongside the trail, simple glass globes resting on smooth stones, each holding a tiny, steady flame. The firelight was dim and golden, never harsh, and it swayed slightly in the breeze, making the shadows pulse and soften. The lanterns did not light the path in a straight, insistent line. Instead, they appeared now and then like small, friendly stars fallen to earth, guiding the traveler forward. Between them, the darkness was not empty but soothing, a gentle blanket that wrapped the valley in quiet. At the base of the slope, the traveler heard it, the deep, soft murmur of water. It rose through the stillness like a voice humming a lullaby without words. Steam drifted upward in pale ribbons from the unseen pools, carrying with it a mineral scent, clean and faintly earthy like stone warmed by the sun. As the traveler stepped nearer, the pools came into view. They were shaped by time and patient hands, edged with smooth rocks that had been worn to softness by years of water and touch. Some pools were small and shallow, hardly more than stone cradles filled with warmth. Others were wide and still, reflecting the stars so clearly that it was difficult to tell where the water ended and the sky began. The surface of the nearest pool rippled softly, disturbed only by a thin trickle of fresh water that slipped over a stone lip. The sound was constant and unhurried, a gentle, tinkling whisper over the deeper, fuller hush of the larger springs. No crowds gathered here, no loud voices or bright lights. The valley seemed to exist outside of time, watched over by pines and stars, and the slow breath of the earth beneath. The traveler felt a sense of quiet welcome, as though the valley recognized the tiredness they carried and opened its arms to receive it. They set their belongings down near a flat, inviting stone and knelt beside the nearest pool. When they dipped their hand into the water, warmth unfolded around their fingers, wrapping them in a soft embrace. It was not scalding or startling, but perfectly soothing, like slipping into a memory of comfort long forgotten. The traveler sighed, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere far inside their chest. They eased off their shoes and felt the cool air against their skin for a moment, then slowly lowered their feet into the water. Heat rose up through their soles and ankles, flowing into tense muscles and tired bones. Each breath out carried away a thin layer of tension. The stars above watched silently, their reflections trembling in the water around the traveler's legs. A gentle breeze moved through the valley, stirring the tops of the pines and sending a soft, shushing sound across the springs. It felt as if the entire valley was breathing in time with the traveler. After a while, as the warmth seeped deeper into their body, the traveler stepped carefully into the pool. The stone beneath the water was smooth and steady. The water rose slowly, first around their legs, then to their waist, then higher, always warm, always gentle. When they finally settled back against a naturally carved ledge and let the water cradle them, a quiet stillness unfolded. The world beyond the valley faded to a distant, harmless murmur. There were no tasks to remember here, no lists to keep. There was only the soft weightlessness of the traveler's body, buoyed by the water and the wide, star-laced sky above. They leaned their head back until it rested against the warm stone, closing their eyes. Behind their eyelids, the patterns of the stars lingered like glowing dust. The sound of the water around them was steady and rhythmic, a low, soothing hush that matched the slow beat of their heart. Not far away, other pools shimmered softly, though they were empty tonight. The valley did not mind. It seemed content to hold just this one quiet presence, to pour all its warmth and comfort into the traveler's rest. The pines formed a protective ring around the springs, their tall trunks and interwoven branches like a gentle, watchful wall. As the traveler drifted in the warmth, they noticed something subtle and almost magical. The steam rising from the water carried tiny, ephemeral sparks of light, like fireflies made of mist. They lifted and vanished, leaving behind a faint impression of glimmering shapes. It was as though the springs themselves were exhaling stars back into the sky. High above, the constellations turned slowly, in no hurry at all. Threads of pale starlight draped across the valley, illuminating the edges of rocks and the tips of needles. A faint ribbon of cloud crossed the sky, painted silver at its edges. The night was deep, but not empty, dark, but never frightening. It was a quiet, sheltering darkness, easy to rest inside. Time in the valley began to stretch and soften. Minutes melted into one another like droplets of water merging into a pool. The traveler's thoughts, once quick and busy, drifted slower and slower, like leaves carried on a lazy current. Old worries floated up and dissolved without effort. The memory of some conversation, the shape of a task left undone, the trace of an old concern. Each one rose briefly, then slipped away, carried off by the warmth of the springs and the gentle pull of the night. The traveler's breathing settled into an easy rhythm, full and unforced. With each inhale, it felt as though they were drawing the calm of the valley into themselves. With each exhale, they released any hidden strain, anything the body had tucked away in corners of muscle and bone. When they opened their eyes again, the stars seemed closer, as if they had leaned down to see more clearly. The reflections on the surface of the pool shimmered softly, and for a moment it looked as though the traveler was floating in the sky itself, suspended between the constellations above and the constellations below. Far across the valley, a small, gentle wind moved through a stand of tall grass. The sound of it, faint but delicate, reached the springs like a distant lullaby. A night animal, curious but unafraid, rustled in the bushes and then paused, sensing the quiet peace of the place, and decided to move more quietly still. Somewhere beneath the water, deep in the earth, currents of warmth flowed and shifted. The springs had been there for longer than any person could remember, feeding the pools through stone and mineral and patient time. It was said in the old stories that the springs were born from a sleeping star that had fallen into the mountain long ago. The star, too gentle to burn the earth, had simply nestled into the rock and shared its warmth instead. The traveler did not know whether the story was true, but lying there, held by the water, it was easy to imagine. The warmth felt ancient and kind, like something that had been caring for the world quietly for a very long time. As their body grew heavier with relaxation, the traveler let their arms float at their sides, fingers moving lazily through the water. Tiny ripples spread from each movement, reaching the edges of the pool and returning as faint, barely there waves that brushed against their skin again. The water was always welcoming, always equal in its embrace. Above, a single shooting star drew a slow, bright line across the sky, then vanished into the distance. The traveler watched it with soft, half-lidded eyes and made no wish at all. There was nothing to ask for in that moment. Everything they needed was already here. Warmth around them, gentle air above them, a body that could finally rest without interruption. In the hush of the valley, the traveler's mind began to wander in softer ways. They imagined the paths that wrapped around the mountains, the streams that fed the trees, the small hidden places where moss grew thick and soft. They pictured roots sinking deep into rich soil, rocks resting against one another for centuries, snow drifting silently down in winter and melting away in spring. The valley in their thoughts became a living, breathing being, a vast and gentle presence that held them as the water held them. It had seen storms and sunlight, footsteps and footprints, departures and returns. It had known travelers who came with heavy hearts and left with lighter ones, without ever quite knowing why. The night deepened by degrees, growing darker and yet somehow more luminous as the eyes adjusted to the starlight. The moon slipped a little lower, casting longer, softer shadows across the stones. The lanterns along the path flickered and glowed, their flames small but steadfast. A mist began to gather at the edges of the valley, a delicate veil that made the trees look slightly blurred, as if everything were being gently painted in watercolor. The steam from the springs blended with the mist, rising and curling in intricate ever-changing shapes. In the pool, the traveler shifted just enough to sink a bit deeper into the warmth. The water rose along their chest and around their shoulders, cradling them as if they were lying in the palm of a hand made of heat and light. Muscles that had been holding on for a long time finally let go. Their thoughts, now slow and drowsy, drifted into daydreams that were almost dreams. They saw a trail lined with glowing stones leading up through the trees to a small grove illuminated by floating lanterns. They imagined lying in the meadow beyond the springs, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars drift by like slow-moving ships. They pictured the sleeping star beneath the mountain, pulsing faintly, sending warmth upward through layers of stone to the pools where they rested. Around the star, the earth was quiet and patient, holding that ancient light without hurry and without demand. Every now and then, one of the tiny, misty sparks of light would rise on a ribbon of steam and linger near the traveler's face before vanishing. When this happened, the air felt just a little warmer, just a bit more tender, as if the valley were offering a small, wordless blessing. In this place, there was no need to be alert, no reason to prepare for anything. The valley took on that work. The mountains stood watch at the edges, the pines listened to the wind, the stars kept their slow, steady vigil overhead. The traveler's only task was to rest, to breathe, to soften further and further into the support that surrounded them. As the night wore on, the sounds of the valley grew even more subdued. The creek's murmur smoothed into a steady, distant hush, like someone whispering gently behind a closed door. The wind quieted, and the pines became still silhouettes against the sky. Even the small animals of the night seemed to move more slowly, as if they too were relaxing into the warmth. The traveler's breathing was now so slow and deep that it blended with the sounds of the springs. Their chest rose and fell in a calm rhythm, and their face had taken on the softened, open look of someone who has forgotten what it feels like to hurry. Eventually they closed their eyes again, and this time they did not open them for a long while. Dreams began to gather around them like soft clouds. In those dreams, the boundary between water and sky, between stone and star, blurred until everything was part of the same gentle, luminous whole. In one dream, the traveler walked across the surface of the pool as if it were made of glass, every step sending out rings of starlight instead of ripples. In another, they lay on a bed of pine needles, while the constellations slowly drifted down to rest beside them, shining but weightless, like patterns drawn in phosphorus on the air. In yet another dream, the sleeping star beneath the mountain opened a single golden eye and looked up, not with judgment or demand, but with calm affection. It recognized the traveler as one of countless visitors who had come seeking rest, and in its soft, unfathomable way, it wished them peace. Above the surface of the water, the traveler's body remained still and safe, warmed through and through by the springs. Their fingers loosened completely and their jaw unclenched, and there was no part of them that was not touched by comfort. The night, wise and unhurried, went on turning. Somewhere far away, morning took its first tentative steps over another horizon, but in the valley of hot springs, the stars stayed bright a little longer. Time there did not need to follow the same rules. It could stretch out the quiet moments, making them long and deep and full, giving the traveler all the rest they needed. The water around them shifted now and then, so gently that it could barely be felt, only noticed as a slightly different warmth brushing across the skin. It was like being rocked in the mildest of currents, a motion so subtle it seemed to be happening inside the body instead of outside it. The lanterns along the path burned lower, their flames smaller, but they did not go out. They would wait until the traveler was ready to leave, whether that was soon or far into the day to come. For now they simply gave off their quiet glow, adding a touch of gold to the blue and silver of the night. The valley, the springs, the stars, and the traveler all seemed to breathe together, inhaling and exhaling in one shared, gentle rhythm. With each shared breath, the distinction between them softened. The traveler was not separate from the night, but held within it, part of its peaceful, steady heart. The traveler's thoughts thinned out to almost nothing, like mist fading in the early light. Only sensation remained, the soft support of stone below, the embrace of warm water all around, the weightless feeling of the limbs, the cool brush of air whenever a bit of skin rose above the surface. In that almost thoughtless state, the traveler simply existed, quiet and still, like a stone resting at the bottom of a clear pool. There was no past to look back on, no future to look toward, only this single, ongoing moment of rest. The stars, patient and luminous, kept watch. The sleeping star beneath the mountain continued to send its warmth upward. The valley held its silence like a soft, folded blanket. And slowly, gently, the traveler drifted deeper, slipping beneath the surface of wakefulness into a state of complete ease. Their breathing grew even softer, their body grew even heavier, and yet somehow lighter at the same time, as if they were dissolving into the water and the night. Nothing tugged at them. Nothing demanded their attention. They were free to rest for as long as they needed, floating in warmth beneath a sky full of quiet, watching stars. Now the springs grew quieter still, and the night around the valley became softer. The lanterns along the path glowed like distant embers, and the pines stood calm and unmoving. The water continued its slow, steady song, wrapping the traveler in its lullaby. In this gentle place, it was safe for them to let go completely, safe to release every last thread of tension, to surrender every last thought, safe to drift down and down into comforting darkness, like sinking into the softest bed. The stars kept their watch. The mountains stood, The warm water held the traveler with endless patience, and as the valley breathed around them, the traveler's mind became quiet, then quieter, then quietest, until there was only the feeling of peace. Rest now held by warmth and starlight. Float with the traveler in the dark, calm water beneath the vast, silent sky. Let the quiet of this valley become the quiet within. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.